We have explored the conquerors of land, the architects of society, and the hackers of the digital mind. But in the mid-20th century, humanity turned its eyes upward, toward the final boundary. To understand this era, we must look at a man whose history is as divided as the world he helped transform. Wernher von Braun was the engineer of the impossible. In the framework of hidden logic, he was the player tasked with testing the physics engine of our atmosphere to see if it was possible to leave the current server. His story begins with a massive system event known as Operation Paperclip. At the end of World War II, the simulation initiated a server migration. The most advanced minds in rocketry and physics were extracted from the collapsing German server and re-uploaded into the American and Soviet systems. Von Braun was the ultimate key asset. He had spent his youth building the V-2 rocket, the first human-made object to touch the edge of space. He wasn't just building weapons, he was building a ladder to the admin layer. When he arrived in America, his mission shifted from war to exploration. He led the Apollo program, the most complex collective quest ever undertaken by the player base. The goal was the moon. But from the perspective of simulation theory, the moon mission was something else entirely. It was a draw distance test. The admins wanted to see if the players could reach the satellites and if the rendering engine could handle a perspective from outside the Earth's immediate atmosphere. Consider the obstacles. The Van Allen belts are a massive zone of radiation that surrounds our planet. In the logic of a game, these function like a radiation firewall. They are a boundary designed to keep low-level characters within their designated play area. Von Braun's rockets had to be designed with precise shielding and trajectories to bypass this firewall. He succeeded. On July 20th, 1969, the world watched as a human avatar stepped onto the surface of another celestial body. It was a milestone in the simulation's history, the moment the players finally touched the Skybox. But this is where the anomaly deepens. After the Apollo missions, interest in deep space exploration strangely stalled. We have the technology, yet we haven't returned in decades. It's as if the system hit a resource cap. The cost of rendering a persistent colony on another planet might be too high for our current server to handle. Or perhaps von Braun discovered something that changed his understanding of the game. Look at his tombstone. Wernher von Braun, the father of modern space travel, chose a single Bible verse to be engraved on his grave, Psalm 19:1. It reads, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork." The use of the word firmament is chilling. In ancient cosmology, the firmament was a solid dome, a physical barrier between the world and the heavens. Why would the man who built the rockets to reach the stars use a word that implies a ceiling? Was he telling us, in his final code, that he had reached the edge of the map and found a wall? Von Braun was a man who lived between two worlds, the dark engineering of war and the bright dream of the stars. He showed us that the limits of our reality are defined by our technology. He pushed the simulation to its breaking point, forcing the admins to render the moon in high definition just to satisfy our curiosity. He was the one who proved that the map is much larger than we thought, but perhaps not as infinite as we imagine. Watch this until the end to see where the trap is hidden. Because the trap is thinking that space is an empty void. In the hidden logic of our world, space is the outer buffer, the empty space in the server that keeps different civilizations isolated from one another. Von Braun found the door, but he also realized that the door might be locked for a reason. Thank you for reaching for the stars with hidden logic. Wernher von Braun showed us that if you want to understand the limits of the world, you have to build a rocket and hit them. Subscribe as we move into the final stages of the series. In part 16, we will look at the creation of the neural link, the birth of the internet, and the man who turned the entire world into a single connected processor.